And that was exactly what I thought we were going to cover. In my notes, it says, don't forget to cover dirty laundry on the floor. All right, so this is the afterburn. If you have a comment or question about today's teaching, if you're not licking your wounds too badly from what I just threw at you, or your belly doesn't hurt too much from laughing, you can go ahead and raise your hands and make a comment or ask a question. Or if you're on live stream, you can go ahead and start typing them in, if not already being. Some of you guys who know how this works have already started typing, and Rob and Kurt will take care of that. So who would like to go first? All right, Steve, go ahead.
All right, I had a question maybe you could help address. Is how much is it our responsibility to accept our contribution to the hurt that we're trying to overcome? Or that maybe...
No, I understand. Look, it's very important, before I answer that, to Manny and to any of the other leadership people, make a note that today in part 20, for yourselves, when people call in, that I covered a lot of relationship, marriage, and all that. Because people always ask, where's the teaching where that's covered? I don't have a separate teaching yet, but I covered it again today, like I've done some other times. So this is one of those ones you want to mark down that I think is important, because it's too long for an in focus, because it's like the whole teaching, but just mark that down. Okay, now to Steve's question. Okay, it is vital in any kind of a situation where there's hurt, all right, that you do two things, all right? You own your part, and that means that you have to do something that's really hard. You have to be honest with yourself. We have a problem with ego and pride. And so we are very quick always to point the finger, to offload responsibility and own nothing. Okay? Now, on the other side of it, there are those of us with a psycho-emotional problem where we then take all blame and nothing's anybody else's fault, and we just implode. Okay? You don't want to swing that pendulum either way. Okay? Because you may have somebody in your life always telling you that everything's your fault, and it may not be. As a matter of fact, I guarantee you, it's impossible for everything to be all one person's fault. There's at least some small amount, or larger amount, depending, okay? Now, if somebody's actually abusive, the majority of it will probably be on that person, and maybe a tiny little bit on the other side. But in most relationships, you don't have that. There's almost a 50-50 going on. And so most of the time, you have to own a good chunk of whatever is going on, okay? It takes two. Now, so to your answer, yes, you have to get through the pride and ego part to recognize if there's a part that you played in the hurt. The second piece is that you have to forgive them if you're the receiver of the hurt, and you have to forgive yourself if you're the causer of the hurt. Do you understand what I just said? There's double action here. You have to forgive them for whatever hurt they caused you, but since you had some part of it, you got to forgive yourself for your part. Okay? Some of us are very, very, very hard on ourselves and are brutal even, and do not ever forgive ourselves. And then we wonder why he won't forgive us, because we think, well, how can he? Because after all, I don't deserve his forgiveness, or I don't deserve his blessing, because look at the piece of you-know-what I am, and how awful I was to these other family members, or my wife, or my husband, or my children, or whatever. And so if you can't forgive yourself, this is why it says in the model prayer, if you can't forgive others, include yourself, their trespasses, he will not forgive you. And it really is because he can't. He's not going to forgive you until you're ready to receive it. And you're not ready to receive it if you're not ready to forgive yourself. Okay? And you're not ready to receive it if you're not ready to forgive others. So then you can't really receive it. Okay, we talk about this whole giving and receiving thing we talked about last time. Okay? Did that answer your question, Steve? All right.
Yep, okay, and then the next one, 154, it says, receive me according to his word. So my thinking is, if he's really going to receive us according to his word, doesn't that make us have to make the change in order to be received as according to his word?
Okay, I'm going to pretend to have followed that, and actually, I do speak fluent Steve, so I can understand him. Okay, let me kind of clear that up for everybody, all right? When we're looking at this, it said, revive me according to your word. Let me simplify this way, all right? What David is expressing here is that he is, again, this is speaking to himself, not to Yahweh. He's actually saying it to Yahweh, but it's to himself. He has to remind himself that all things have to be not according to the way I think it should be or the way I want it to be, but it's got to be according to him. So when he says, revive me, but not just revive me the way I want, revive me according to your word. Deliver me, but not just the way I want, but according to your word. Provide for me, but not just the way I want, but according to your word. Okay? Because we have to be very careful we get the I out of the mix. So David is trying to put in here this understanding that, hey, when I'm asking for things, he always brings it back to according to your will, according to your word, according to your will, according to your word. Why? Because he wants to make sure he's not trying to impose his vision of what it should look like. He could have simply said, revive me. But the other part of that, I believe, is for himself. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? He simply wanted revival, deliverance, save me. But he wants to remind himself, but I want it according to your will. I don't want to impose my will on the deal. Okay? So I think that last part was for himself. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, see, that I was thinking that we had to change, but you had twisted that you turned it around correctly, meaning he's going to accept me according to what he saw or what he wants, not what I want. So
right. Well, but also remember, he knows, and this is something that you guys, if you counsel with him, you know I'm going to push through and dig for. He knows what you want, not what you say you want, not what you think you want. He knows what you actually want. So when David's saying, help me, rescue me, he knows what David really is looking for. When he's expressing what he thinks is a need, okay? That's why he can give you what he's going to give you, knowing it's actually, even though you're like, well, how is that supposed to help? Well, you just don't see it. It will. And so when you come to me, a lot of times I'll say, but what do you want? Oh, but what? No, I understand that. But what is it you want? What is it you're looking for? What are you hoping to have happen? What result are you looking for? See, the ultimate of every color, by the way, but we're going to use red for the minute. The ultimate, this goes to our personality test. People are watching like, what are you talking about colors? We did a personality test called the color code, so there's 4 colors, whatever. But for you who know what I'm talking about, the ultimate red in the universe is the creator. He's also the ultimate blue, yellow, and white. So don't get me wrong. I'm talking about his red aspect right now. And in his red aspect, he understands the result that is desired. Okay, so remember, red's are result-oriented. So when David is screaming out for something, he thinks he needs deliverance. He thinks he needs whatever he's yelling out for. And so, but Abba understands the result David is looking for. Okay? And what that should look like. Is it something that he should make happen, or is it something David should make happen? Is it something he should do that David can't? Is it to be something David needs to figure out on his own, but just needs a little nudge in a direction or a nudge over in this other direction to figure it out? What is it that David needs to actually get the result that would be best for David? Yah knows that better than David. Okay? Your creator knows better than you what's actually best for you. You just know what you're feeling, and you're screaming out. And he's thinking, okay, I know what you really need. I know what you think you need. I'm going to provide you with what you really need because I know the result that you're looking for. You want something to stop or something to start. Right? And so, but you can't picture how that's going to work, or you have your own way, but it's not the best way according to him. So David throws in, according to your word. In other words, I'm not wanting to impose any. See, this is the thing you have to be careful with when you talk to Yah. There's nothing wrong with telling him how you would prefer things to be. Just always leave it open to, I'm absolutely open to whatever it is your way of doing it. Because I always know yours is going to be better than mine. I told you about that one story about the lady asked me to pray over, and then she wanted to tell me how to do it. I said, no. And she started arguing, and I just walked out of the room. And she looked at me like, I can't believe that. I said, well, I told you, I'm not doing this if you're going to tell me how to do this. You wanted me to do this. It's a metaphor for him. He is not interested in you telling him how to do anything. Just tell him what you need. Tell him what you want. Tell him what you're dealing with. Let him provide the right answer. Now you can say to him, what I'd like to happen is, but nevertheless, your will be done. That's, by the way, what she didn't want me to do. She's heard me say that in every prayer, and she said she didn't want me to do that part. I'm like, first of all, that goes in every prayer. If I'm doing it. You can do anything you want. When I do it, I'm always about, no matter what I say, nevertheless, your will be done. Okay? No matter what I think, I'm ready for whatever you want. Okay? And secondly, she was wrong in trying to tell me how to do it, not because like, well, who am I? But it's like, that's the wrong structure. It's the wrong protocol. Okay? This is not like when I go to get my hair cut and that person there is going to ask me how I want it done and then try to do what I ask. You're asking me for something you don't know exactly what you need. You just have need, and you're asking me because you need something. Let me do that. Your only job is to express the need as clearly as you can. This person was very unhealthy with lupus and other things. Fine. You are struggling with that. I will pray. You came to me, you asked me to do it, let me do that. Does that make sense? Okay? So I don't want you to think for a second I was offended or this. I wasn't. I just wasn't going to do it. I said, if you're not this, because you know why? Do you understand? Who wants to guess why I wouldn't do it? What was that? Not because his will is perfect. Let me keep you from guessing. Because it was never going to help. Because she was already wrong. And he wasn't going to give her anything. Do you understand? There was no point to it at this point. She was not submissive to the structure, which includes him. So he was never going to give her what she was asking for. So I want you to understand, the reason I walked out wasn't because I was being stubborn or you're not going to do it my way, then forget it. It was more like, this is a waste of time. You are not going to get anything doing it that way. Do you see that now? Okay? So I walked out. I wasn't mad, wasn't offended. I just said, okay. If you're going to argue with me, then he's not going to bless you now. I'm going to be all angry, rebellious, and demanding, and Jezebel, and everything else, whatever negative thing you think, and then I'm going to expect him to do whatever I want. Are you kidding me? But that's all of us. We do that at times. We run off doing all the stuff we want to do, and then we want him to just do everything. Are you doing your part? David said, I am doing my part. Deliver me. I'm meditating on your word. I'm guarding your witnesses. I'm keeping your commands. No matter all these people that are doing mischief and everything else, nonetheless, I'm clinging to your stuff. I'm not drifting off left and right. I'm not running off in mischievous directions. I'm not traitoring. I'm not doing these other things that he says here. I'm holding on. Now, that being said, would you mind helping me, please? Okay? I mean, it's a right relationship. I could really use some help here. I'm doing whatever, at the best of my ability, I'm doing it with everything I've got. I really could use some help. Okay? But he has the integrity first to say, because you could say everything David said and it could be a complete nonsense and lie. There's no integrity to it. Well, then Yahweh's like, yeah, but none of that's true. You're not clinging to anything except your own personal, selfish whatever. He could say all that, right? All right, who's next? Steve's got another one.
One more. You've said on a couple different occasions, I know, that there's three voices in our head, but don't each one of them sound like us? And how do you differentiate?
Yes.
Which is the best one to listen to?
All right. I've answered this in other teachings, but I'll answer it here. Okay, so I've often said that you have at least three voices in your head. Not real voices like you hear voices, but there are thoughts that are coming, that manifest into your head. And there's at least three sources of the thoughts. We'll call it that way, okay? There's you, your own ego, id, whatever. I mean, the different things that make up you. I don't know, psychology, whatever, they have names for all these things. There's you, whatever makes you you. That spirit in man, that the preferences. Okay, that part of you that likes and doesn't like things, that wants and doesn't want things. okay? That voice that you have, that thought process that's motivated by, I like it, I don't like it, I want it, I don't want it. That's right, that's wrong. That's that internal voice. The second voice you have is Hasatan. And his voice, by the way, is only encouraging you on your own voice, because he wants you to just have that sovereignty in the direction, because as long as you have that sovereignty, the Creator doesn't. So he's going to encourage you. Absolutely, you should have what you want. No way you should do that. You don't like that. You don't want to do that. He's going to be cheering you on in your sovereignty. Okay? Don't think of Hasatan as the initiator. You give him the fuel because you want it or you don't want it. He's just going to encourage you to go for it or to not go for it, which way it is. Then the third voice is the still small voice of the Creator saying, if you would just listen to me, I'll tell you the right thing to do. Now, yes, in your head, those thoughts all seem like yours or they all seem like his. That doesn't matter. You can't tell them apart so easily. Now, you can use a technique like saying, okay, how much of this thought matches up with my preferences? That may be a hint that it's you. Now, sometimes what you want and what he wants aligns. But you got to ask yourself, how much is this being influenced by a want or a preference? We'll just call it preferences. If it's preference-focused, really influenced by your preferences, it's probably you. Okay, so that's something to be careful about. Secondly, okay, don't worry about which one's Hasatan, because that one's just cheering you on for the other one. What you want to figure out is which one is Yahweh's. And how do you do that? A, you look for it in the Scripture. B, you go counsel with an anointed, appointed, and say, these are the two thoughts. They are conflicting thoughts, and I don't know what to do with the cognitive dissonance in my head because the thoughts don't match, and I don't know which one is him, which one is me. Like I said, forget about Hasatan. He's just the one cheering it on, and, so it's in there, okay? But the one he's cheering on is the one you shouldn't do. But you won't hear it as a third thought. You'll hear it you'll basically feel it as a strong feeling towards a thought, okay? So you're not getting three different thoughts. You're getting two different thoughts with a third entity cheering on one of them, okay? Does that answer the question, Steve? So the best answer is get counsel when you can't tell them apart. Because yes, they will all sound like you. And you'll want to believe that all of them are him. Oh, but Yahweh spoke to me clearly and said blah, 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 blah. Well, maybe he did and maybe he didn't. You just felt like he did. It might have been, it might not have been. Because people tell me, oh no, it was clear as, And then they end up off in a ditch and I go, oh really? So I guess that really wasn't him. But you were so sure. Anybody have that experience? Come on, let's be honest. You were sure and you knew and it was the wrong voice. You should have got counsel. Well, I didn't have anybody back then. Well, you do now. Take advantage of it. All right, next.
So 151, when you say you're near to Yahweh, or you're near, meaning Yahweh is near to us. So I was trying to figure out, so that's because his word is in our hearts and we can always get from that well of living water, or is it because of prayer that we can always, get close to him?
Okay, I think that we kind of miss some basic understanding. First of all, the parts of that are absolutely true, which is like when we read Deuteronomy 30, where it says, the Torah is not far away to fly up to the heavens to get it or across the sea, but it's near and in your heart. But you need to understand, he, on some levels, we like to say how he's in us, but we're actually in him. He flows through everything that exists. He's everywhere. So he's always near, okay? We think of it from the metaphor of drawing near and him drawing near because we want to personify like into a physical body, and we picture that. But he's not limited to that physical amount of space. And so he's everywhere. So he's always near. It's the relational part that makes us either near or far from him based on the relational part. So whether you're physically near or not is not the point. He's always physically near. He's everywhere. Did we have any doubts about that part? So if he's everywhere, in essence, we're in him. Okay? Everything that exists is in him. Then we have this idea of a metaphor of the idea of him being in us, like a part of him dwelling in you, to understand a relational thing and a communication thing. It's not like in the movie Aliens or something physically went in your body and is inside you dwelling or something, okay? But it's to help you understand that there's a transference in our relationship where you're now having an indwelling of him to interact with the you and the part of him that was given and breathed into you when you were born, and how that all interacts inside of you. And of course, this is all beyond the physics that we understand of 3 dimensions. Okay? Now we're dealing with something outside space and time and all these other things. So it's above and beyond what we can understand, right? Okay? And from what I understand, on December 21st, we're going into the 5th dimension, and know everything as we know it's going to change. And don't you watch those on TikTok and things like that? Okay? Like the whole universe is aligning in a way, and it's going to change. So you should all be nervous and scared. No, I'm sorry, that's not kosher. Okay.
Verse 158.
Yeah.
I saw traders and I was grieved.
Mm-hmm.
With grieving process, I've seen that, like, if I see somebody who is, which says traders means not walking Torah, right? You feel the pain to see that. But is it also like grieving, praying for, interceding for,
Well, you certainly can.
brothers?
You certainly can. Okay, I'm glad you brought the verse up because I just saw something I didn't see when I was talking about it. Notice that it says, I saw traitors and was grieved. Notice that he's not grieved because they're being traitors. He's not grieved because they may be attacking David. He's not grieved because of what. He's grieved because of their relationship to the Creator, because they're not guarding the word. Isn't that interesting? So you're not upset with them like you do this with a congregation. Oh, those traitors, and they left and they're doing some other thing. But why are we grieved about that? People have a journey. That journey may take them away. They may come back or whatever. We're not cultish. We don't attack people when they leave. Okay? But we can grieve because they may be Torah challenged, because maybe they leave and they go back into Sunday church, or maybe they leave and they're doing some other thing whatever it is they're doing that could be not guarding the word. And that should cause us to grieve. But not the traitoring part. Okay? He's not grieving the traitoring and the treacherous part of that. He's grieving that they're not guarding the word. Listen to the verse. I saw traitors and was grieved because, he's telling you why, they did not guard your word. And so why is he grieving that they didn't guard the word? Because he knows that had they guarded it, they would not be in the place where they're potentially, if they're not already, potentially they're going to be suffering. Because they're going to reap what they're sowing, even if it hasn't happened yet. Okay?
But I had a thought about that. I remember your teaching on discernment, judging and judgment, that the judging was to use discernment, not to do what you see that is wrong, right? So that's what I'm thinking of, grieving that maybe you may have to make a decision about not spending.
Yeah, I mean, that part could also be it. I mean, he could be grieving that he's going to lose friends. He could be grieving that he's going to lose family members. He could be grieving about all kinds of things because the two can no longer walk together.
Right.
Yeah, that could be part of it as well, absolutely.
And then one more thing, when with your homework assignment, when you said how much time you're spending talking about other people, and you were saying especially in the negative, can we talk about positive? Is that still not good to talk about?
No, I think it's good if you're lifting up and talking positive about people, okay? I think we don't spend a whole lot of time doing that, though. I think most of the time we're talking about people, it's in some sort of a negative context on some level. Maybe not hugely negative, but did you see that post so-and-so made? Can you believe that, blah, blah, blah? Did you see that picture? Did you whatever? I mean, it's just, we just talk negatively about people on a very, very regular basis. Okay, yes, sir.
Thank you. But going back to verse 154, plead my cause and redeem me. Would it be a mistake to see or read that verse as David addressing Messiah yet to come? Does that make any sense?
Look, I am very, I don't know what word I want to use there. I had 2 or 3 pop in my head and I didn't like any of them. Reluctant, okay, let's put it that way. I'm reluctant to do what most Christian Messianics want to do, people that come into this from Christianity. There seems to be an obsession with having to try to make every verse be about Messiah. There's no effort necessary. Every verse is about Messiah. So there you go. Okay? So we don't have to now look at verses like this and say, could he be talking about? David's talking about what David's talking about. He's talking directly to the Creator, okay? And the Creator, in this case, that David's interacting with is probably the Son, because the Father isn't directly interacting with people, and saying, plead my cause and redeem me, okay? This is not necessarily a prophetic verse towards the future of the death, burial, and resurrection, and everything, although we'd like to read all that stuff in there, all right? So I'm very reluctant to do that as much as other ministries love to do that. I recognize that everything in here is about Messiah. Everything in here is about the relationship with us and the Father and the Son. And I don't need to stretch that out there. As far as hinting at to the future appearance of him in flesh and then the resurrection that comes after that, I think that's a stretch. Okay? Okay? Now, ultimately, we know the Messiah will plead our cause and does always plead our cause. So when he's praying to, essentially, the Messiah here, he's praying to the Son. He's not interacting with the Father directly. To do what he always does, plead our cause. He's always been the high priest pleading our cause. So from that point of view, it's already linearly right there, okay? All right, who's next? Rabbi Tom?
Thank you. Earlier in your teaching this afternoon, you mentioned Lashon Hara. And we know that it can take many forms. But, and I think we can also agree that even if we're saying something that's true, it can be Lashon Hara.
Yeah.
Well, some years ago, someone called me aside and he said, look, I've told some other people, I got to tell you this. There's a certain individual over there who's a pedophile, so watch him around your children. I suppose, we could apply this to anything. We could warn someone that someone may be a kleptomaniac, so watch him when he's in your house. He may steal. Is that Lashon Hara? Well,
look, I mean, first of all, if you actually could have some knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me finish. If you could have some knowledge that somebody is as opposed to was, that may be different. Okay, because somebody may have been a pedophile, or they may be. Someone may have been a kleptomaniac, or they may still be. Or someone may have done this or that, or they still may. You don't know necessarily. If you do know, it may be different. If you don't know if that's what they still are, in other words, is it something they did, or is it something they are still doing, or whatever, okay? So that's hard. Now, I didn't mention as much as I might have liked to during the teaching the idea of if something is true, how that would look. Okay, so for example, somebody may have had a miscarriage, but that's not your business to share that with anybody. They may find that shaming, embarrassing, or some other thing. It may hurt them emotionally for you to share that information. Somebody may have lost their job and gotten fired. These things may be true, but you have to think about if I share this, does that hurt the other person in some way? Now, you may not understand why it does, so you must really always ask, is it your place to mention it? Okay, is it your place to mention it, or is it theirs to mention? Okay? Because otherwise it's Lashon Hara. Okay? Even if it may be true. But if it's going to cause them embarrassment or harm, then you shouldn't do it. That's their choice to share. Okay? Not yours. Okay. Next. Okay, live stream.
Okay, from Philip Mason, verses 150 through 158, is this correct? If we are diligent to uphold our end, then we can boldly come before the throne. Abba wants us to approach his throne because we are treasured possession. And I guess he refers to Exodus 19:5.
Yes. The answer is yes. Okay. Next.
Okay, from First Love says, well, we had quite a few questions. We just kind of just sent them out there to just say specific counseling because they're basically one side. It says, and this one was an example. It says from First Love, so how can you help a man realize there's more to life than YouTube and sitting in bed? How can you motivate someone to live? We had several on both sides. It's like, how can I convince my wife that I'm working overtime, and then she still gets mad at me because I'm working overtime, we told them that there's some specifics that probably need to see.
All right. Actually, I'm glad you asked the question sort of in the format of the question, so I know what kinds of questions are. Look, this is one of the greatest frustrations in relationships, is to recognize the boundaries that you have, okay? You can't do this. You can't make him or her see anything. You can't make him or her do anything. You can work on the level of your relationship where they may value your opinion, because obviously your relationship is not where it needs to be if you are not able to communicate your opinion. Or, this is to all you ladies, okay? Ladies, I'm going to give you some grief right now. You're going to get nowhere, absolutely nowhere with your husbands, with your men, if you're going to say whatever you say and it sounds like you're being their mother or their boss. Doesn't matter how right you are, their ears will shut and they will hear nothing. As a matter of fact, they're going to dig in and get more stubborn. I'm just giving you the facts, just the facts, ma'am, okay? Do not do that. Now, if you have a relationship where you have a right approach and you're coming respectfully to your spouse and your relationship allows for the conversation, yes, you can have the conversation. But remember, the answer is still no, you cannot make the other person. The same thing for the husbands. You cannot make your wife see something, whatever it is, or get something, or you can't make people get or do anything. Okay? So give that up completely. What you can do is hope to develop a relationship where they will consider strongly your opinion and value your opinion. All right? Ladies, your opinion does not need to be obeyed to be valued. This is a hard thing for the ladies. Well, he doesn't listen. Well, it's because he didn't do what you said. Doesn't mean he didn't listen. Doesn't mean he didn't value your opinion. He may have just chosen to do it a different way. Don't use the compliance to what you said as a measure of whether or not it was valued. You have to find a different way to figure out whether or not it was valued. Because you're not there to make him do anything. You will never be his boss or his mother. He probably already has one of each and doesn't want a second one. Okay? This is a universal problem, though. I mean, I've had other courses, I've seen courses that are out there for ladies, how to be a better wife, and like those kind of courses. And in the course, guess what the lady said to all the ladies in the course? Ladies, he doesn't want a mother or a boss. Now, some of you, if you have a husband that wants you to mother him, now you don't have a husband. You've got a child. Well, now you have a different relationship problem. So if your husband is sitting there only watching YouTube and Netflix and playing video games and not being productive and the house is not being taken and you're not safe, why are you still married to this man? Don't look at me like that. Not you guys. I mean, whoever it is. You can't make him change. You can appeal to him to get counsel. You can appeal to him to look at his life in a certain way, but you can't make him change. You picked this guy. Well, Rabbi, you don't understand. No. I don't need to hear all the excuses as to how dumb you were when you married him and how you didn't know anything and you guys are both drugged out of your minds and it was all about sex and drugs. I don't need to hear any of that stuff, and all you did was play video games and have fun, and the next thing you know, that part of the life never changed. You made your choices from where you were as best you could or as badly as you did at the time. Now you got to make other choices. Either you're going to come into agreement and fix this together, or you're not. But you can't make him. Okay? Look, to both sides of this equation, okay? You only have one bullet in your gun, so to speak. There's only one arrow in your quiver. There's only one thing you can do. You can't hit. You can't abuse verbally. All you can do is say, I'll leave. That's your only leverage that you have. So some of you may need to threaten that, but don't threaten unless you mean it. And say, if this doesn't change, actually don't make it a threat, make it a statement. If you're going to stay on the couch playing video games and watching YouTube and doing nothing else, you can do that by yourself. That may cause a thought change in his head. It may not. By the way, with the wives that are just as bad and the husbands are frustrated, the only leverage you have is leaving. That's terrible to think, but that's all you've got. You've only got one card to play. And by the way, every marriage out there has been to that place in the deck with the one card. And playing that card sometimes fixes the marriage, sometimes it ends. But everybody gets there. Don't look at me like you know it's true. If you haven't thought about, or at least talked about, divorcing your spouse, you've only been married 5 minutes. You've thought it, or you've talked about it, or both. Because this is a hard thing to do. If we're going to be honest, it is the hardest thing there is to do. And it's permanent unless you get a divorce. It's like you're sitting there saying, I'm either going to love this or hate this or end this. I've only got 3 choices. And I don't know why anybody would choose the choice of just hating it. I would either love it by making every effort to fix it and make it work, or leave it. I don't know why you just sit there miserable and hate it forever. It's not good for you. It's not good for the other spouse. It's not good for kids. It's not good for anybody. Of course, divorce isn't either, which is why fixing it is the only real good answer. But the problem is you're not going to fix it without proper motivation. You know where the proper motivation comes from? Figuring out through all your pain and all that everything else what it is you really want. What do you really want? That's why every marriage counseling that I do, I always ask this question first. What do you want? Do you still want to be married to her? Yes. Do you still want to be married to him? Yes. You both heard each other say that? Yes. We have a foundation to do something with. If either one said no or both, there's nothing to work with. You can't force that or change that. But once you both say yes, usually after the yes is like, yes, but. I know there's a but. But do you want? If things could work, blah, blah. Do you still desire to be married to each other? I know you don't like the circumstances and the things like that, but you want to be married. Yes, I do. Okay, good. Now are you ready to roll up your sleeves and do the work? It's not going to be easy. Not going to be fun. It'll be worth it. Because I'm telling you right now, staying in a miserable marriage or divorce are awful solutions. They're just awful. You know, better just roll up your sleeves and get it fixed. But you can't do it yourself. Both of you got to do it. So sometimes the threat of, or the assurance of, or actually physically separating might wake things up a little bit. I'd rather you separate for a short period of time than just run off and get divorced, or than just be miserable forever. Now, bear in mind, if you separate, you both may realize you like it better that way. And you may end up divorced anyway. Or you may realize, I don't like this. I really miss my spouse, my husband, my wife, whatever. I want to fix this. I want to straighten some things out. I want to do something to make this work, to make this right. Okay? And so that's the only card you can play. So when the person asks this question, it's a great question. Well, what do I do? How come I don't know how I can make my husband, make my wife? You can't make them. You have one card to play to leverage them. If you don't address this, if we don't get counseling and fix this, I will leave. I cannot continue like this. Now, bear in mind, I want to encourage you something that's important. Do not say those words, okay, without making it clear what you want. Okay, listen to me. You start with, I want this marriage to work. But if this doesn't get addressed, I will leave. I don't want to leave. Make sure it's clear what you want. Okay? Not just, I'm done, I'm leaving. Because then the person figures, well, what's there to fight with? You don't want me anyway. Make sure it's clear what you want. Not, I want you off the couch. I want to be married in a way that works for both of us. I want to walk together in agreement. This is not working. You don't need details. You both already know it, okay? This is not a shocker to either one of you, I'm sure. All right? It's not working, okay? And if it is a shocker to one of you, then your communication skills are terrible. You should have said something. If that person on the couch watching YouTube and playing video games all day has never had you say one word about it, and then you all of a sudden say you're leaving because of it, that's not right either. You should have said something at some point like, hey, by the way, you need to know this doesn't work for me. We need to fix this. Okay? Now, why is he doing that, or why is she doing whatever? That wasn't in the question, didn't mention whatever she was doing. But still, why is this person doing what they're doing? Because you never had an expectancy conversation where it was clear that you expected them not to do that. Or you expected them to do some things that they're not doing, and you expected them to do it. And so they never agreed to any of that. They had an expectation that they spent their whole life drinking and playing video games, that they spend the rest of their life drinking and playing video games. Why should they think anything different? But now I have a wife and I'm drinking and playing video games. Okay? But because no expectancy was set. All right? Is this making sense now to everybody? So you have only one card. Don't just play that card just loose. All you got is one. You can only play it once. Only play it if you mean it. It clearly explains what you're hoping for. I'm hoping that this will snap us out of this and fix it, if that's what you're hoping for. If you're actually hoping just to end it and leave, then just leave. Don't even use the card. The card should only be used because you want to stay. Okay? Does that make sense? Otherwise, just leave. Why would you use the card if you're not? I mean, what's the point in saying, if you don't stop doing this, I'm leaving, unless you actually hope he's going to stop doing it or she's going to stop doing it so that you don't have to leave? Right? If you're already done, then just be done. That's fair to both of you. Okay, no fair staying in a marriage where one of you's done and the other person's miserable because they have a loveless relationship because their spouse is done with them. That sounds like hell. Better to just be done. Okay? Is it making any sense to everybody? Hopefully this makes sense to the people that were typing that in that Rob was asking about, okay? Recognize you can't make anybody do anything. Even the threat of divorce isn't making them do something. You're hoping it will give them a wake-up call to how important and serious the situation has become so they can make a choice. So I'm still not making the person do anything. I'm just making it really clear that there is consequences to their choices. And this is a consequence that may be serious enough for them to look up from their video game and go, what? Okay. What was that? Yes, I'm glad I got your attention now. But only use the card if you mean to play it and you're ready to play the game all the way through. Because he may turn around and say, fine, leave. He may call your bluff. He may think it's a bluff. If he calls your bluff or she calls your bluff, fine, so leave and say, look, I'll talk to you in 30 days. We'll see if we're in the same place or where there is. Because remember, the whole point is to see if it snaps somebody out of it. That's what you're hoping for. But remember, you're not making them do anything. You're hoping that they may make choices. Is that fair? Does that make sense? Look, I'm trying to, and some of you think, this is really weird advice you're giving, Rabbi. I'm dealing with a world of 50% plus divorce. I don't know what else to tell you guys. I'm married 20 plus years. I love my wife. It's not easy. Not because of her, because of both of us. If you're married 20 years, you know. Don't look at me like I should be embarrassed that I just admitted in front of you that my wife and I struggle as like anybody else. Two people together for 20 years. We struggle, trust me, just like anybody else. And don't you think when you pick on your spouse, well, look at that other couple, they're perfect. No, they're not. They're just good in public. Some of us are just not very good at that. Others are great at it. See, you're doing your surveys again. Most husbands, blah, 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 blah. Is that good? Is that making some sense for people? Okay? Let me close that point by just making it clear. I'm not a fan of divorce. I think it's a horrendous option. But I think staying together miserably, hating each other and whatever is worse. Okay? It will physically kill you. It'll wreck your health. All right? So better to fix it. Okay? Better to fix it. Oh, but, there's no but. Any choice you make will be hard. Starting life over will be hard. Dealing with whatever you have together, children and everything else, and figuring out how to deal with that will be hard. Go talk to somebody who's divorced and dealing with custody issues, how hard that is. You got a few of them in this room that would be happy to tell you how awful that is. Okay? So if it can be fixed, fix it. But he doesn't want to talk to me. She doesn't want to talk to me. Fine. Play the card and see if you get their attention. But don't play it if you haven't thought it through. You better know how you're going to take care of yourself if you end up by yourself. You better know what you're going to do, where you're going to live, how it's going to work. Don't just play the card willy-nilly. Think it through. You need to think it through. I got a bunch of people telling me, la, 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 and then I'm like, have you thought this through? What do you mean? Okay, so where are you going to live? I don't know. What are you going to do for work? I don't know. When was the last time you had a job? 40 years ago. What are you going to do? Nobody's thinking these things through. Think it through. Then you may appreciate your spouse a little differently because you hadn't thought it through. Okay? Think it through. Play the thing out in your head all the way through. Not just, I'll finally be rid of her or him, but what's life now going to be like on your own with all the other things that are going on. Okay, Rob?
From Mesalam Garcia says, is there any chance we can be doing Lashon Hara when we talk negatively about ourselves to others, feeling shame and communicating it to others and causing a negative space that can be contagious?
I suppose that would be true. Look, stop talking negatively about anybody, including yourself, especially yourself. Okay? If there's something negative in your life, what do you do with it? I've taught you this. What do you do with the negative things in your life? Own it, fix it, and move on. We don't talk about it. You don't beat yourself up in your own head or with other people. You own it and you fix it. Okay? I don't know what to do. Then step one is figure out what to do. So dumb. Come on. I don't know what to do. So go get help. Ask somebody what to do. Go find somebody that knows about the thing you're struggling with. I struggle with anger. I struggle with pornography. I struggle with PTSD. I struggle with drugs. I struggle with alcohol. I struggle with whatever it is. Go find somebody with that expertise and find out what to do. I guarantee you there's books on it, tapes on it, videos on it, DVDs. I guess they don't do tapes anymore, whatever, CDs, DVDs. There's whatever it is you're dealing with, somebody put something out you can go get that has an expertise on it.
From Nancy Hose, says, Rabbi, does covenant create expectations on both parts? I.e., if I guard and do with the right heart, then according to his word, it's merited favor, not attempts at manipulating him. says, I've been accused of trying to obligate Yah to give me salvation through Torah observance.
No. Look, salvation, let's remember basically the whole point that I've taught you over and over again. Are you saved is a teaching you need to listen to for this. Salvation is available to everyone already. You don't earn salvation. There's nothing that you can do for salvation. It's just available. Yeshua made that available by the death, burial, and resurrection. It's available. Now, what you merit is the reward of eternal life. Okay, you don't merit salvation. Whether or not it's of any use to you is merited. Salvation is available to everyone. Okay? What you get to do with it or not is merited. Hopefully that makes sense and it's clear. So when people are talking to you about, well, you're trying to obligate him. No, I'm not trying to obligate him. I'm meeting my obligation. Reverse the words there. I'm not obligating him. I'm obligated to him. That's why I keep the commandments. I'm not keeping them to obligate him. I'm keeping him to meet my obligation. Okay?
Okay, we'll make this the last one. From Laurie, says, how do we be humble? How can we be humble and yet still expectant? I feel like expectancy is a bit forward.
Okay, hold on. Look, let's be honest. Okay, we're going to bring reality into this, and we'll close with this one. I'm going to be honest with you. You need to be honest with yourself. There's only one reason you're doing any of this is because of expectancy. Let's be honest. You wouldn't be doing this except that you're expecting eternal life. You're expecting to be in the kingdom. You're doing this because he offered you what he offered you. So you're not doing this with some whatever good-sounding excuse reason that you may come up with. You're doing it because you want what he offered you. And you expect him to give it to you. There's nothing forward about that. He expected you to react that way. He expected you to want it bad enough to be willing to trust him. He took the biggest carrot that there could possibly be, eternal life, dangled it in front of your face and said, you can have this if you do this. And you should expect to have it if you would just obey and trust me. Let's not do what most Messianic teachers and Hebrew roots teachers do and say, well, it's not that we have to do anything. We just do it because we love him and blah, blah. You know what word I want to say? Okay? That's all nonsense. You don't do this for those reasons. You don't love him because he's going to give you eternal life. You love him because of the whole thing Deuteronomy 10:12 tells you. You realized who he is and you fear him. And then you walked in his ways trusting him because you wanted the eternal life. And you realized that all of this walking works and it blesses you and it keeps you safe. And then you realize he loves you and you love him for the same reason you love anybody else, because they love you. Okay? But the obedience part is because you want what it brings. And the more you obey, the more you realize it works. And so you obey some more. Don't call that selfish. That's the way he designed it. Because we're not smart enough on our own to figure out what works. Some of you are laughing because you've tried that a few times and realized how badly that worked. And so he simply says, I know it works, you don't, and I know you're not going to believe me and trust me. So let me give you some incentive. I'm going to bless you if you trust me. I'm going to give you eternal life if you would trust me and obey me. He gives us an incentive to do something we would never really be motivated to do. It would just turn into the 10 suggestions. Okay? Hey, I think this is a good idea if maybe you didn't steal from each other and murder each other and commit adultery and whatever. But you guys do what you want. Okay? Okay? He knows we need to be incentivized. So don't think of it as being wrong in our approach or having a wrong motivation. He put that motivation there. Hey, Moses, what? Tell everybody, if they will agree to do everything I say, I will take care of everything else in their life. That's pretty motivating. In Deuteronomy 28, he makes it real clear. I mean, I will make sure that nobody comes in. The armies don't come and kill you. Everybody's fertile. Your ground yields its fruit. The skies give you rain. Everything is one. I mean, he tells you everything in life if you would just do what? Obey. Now, so why are we obeying? Because he tells us we'll bring blessing. Oh, no, I obey because I love him. Okay, why do you love him? Because it brings blessing. You don't just love him because he's the creator. You love him because of the relational stuff that you get from him in exchange for what you do for him. Okay? That's why you love him. Let's not, paint some very wonderful sounding nonsense as the answer to all of these things. We're going to live in reality here. He didn't say, hey, Moses, tell the people I want them to obey everything I say because they love me. Because I'm great, I'm the creator, and they love me, they should just do everything I say. He knew that wouldn't work. Offering them everything didn't work. But it's still the only reason why anybody does it. They do it because he offers. Remember Joshua and Caleb, what did they say? They said, what's wrong with you people? He offered us this land and we went and it was what he said it was. There's milk and honey. There's grapes big enough we got to carry on a pole. He told us the truth. Trusting him brings the physical blessings that we were promised. So let's just be honest about this. We love him because he wants, look, the same thing, I'm going to put us all in wife mode for a second, okay? Because we're supposed to be the bride anyway. That's a body, men or women, doesn't matter. In wife mode. Ultimately, the wife is going to love her husband if the husband provides for the wife. She will lose love for him if he doesn't. Now, is that selfish, wrong, and this and that? No, it's the design of the thing. You wonder why your wife doesn't love you? Are you providing? Is she safe? Think about Yahweh, what he does for you. Do you do that for her? Does she feel safe? Is she secure, provided for, and taken care of? Does she have needs that aren't being met? Forget about the wants. That's the other problem you ladies have. You don't know what your needs and your wants are. That's your issue. I'm talking about the guy's issue right now, right? But are the needs being met? Okay? Now, ladies, some of you, all of your stuff is actually getting done. You still don't love your husband because you don't even know the difference between a need and a want, which is why both of you guys have a problem. Okay? Because we've lost connection with those realities, what it means to be a man and a woman. See, we don't do well with Yah because we don't have all of our wants met and we get mad at him. But are your needs being met? Yes. Are you safe? Yes. Are you provided for? Yes. Depends on what standard you're using, right? As long as it's not your wants standard, you're fine. But can you separate the two? No, I can't. I'm a struggling human being, and I have a wants-needs disconnect. And I talk about that in a lot of the teachings. I have a complete disconnect between what's a want and what's a need. Because everything we want, we think we need. And we don't. We just think we do. And that's why most marriages are a disaster, because one or both of them is not getting their wants met. Doesn't matter if their needs are getting met. They can't see it because their wants aren't getting met. Well, I want her to blah, blah. I want him to blah, blah, blah. And so you're frustrated because your wants aren't being met. See, wants are only going to get met by agreement. Needs are obligated. Okay? You get married, mister, you need to meet her needs. Needs. All of her wants are by agreement. By the way, all of your wants are by agreement. Okay? That's why you got to do this expectation thing and come to an agreement. I know my wife likes to take pictures of all the things during a meal. That's a want, not a need. Okay? I don't want to do it. That's also a want, not a need. I don't need to not do it. I just don't want to do it. But we can come to an agreement and take 2 or 3 of them. Right? Oh, by the way, my wife just walked in. By the way, I told them all that our marriage does have moments and we have problems and everything, so just so you know. I also told them every one of theirs does too, so. Because we've been married 20 years, I said, of course. Okay? But just so you know, we have a real emotionally, I don't know, I guess the only way to call it is screwed up. I mean, we're screwed up in our heads. We just don't see things through the proper wants, needs, metrics or whatever you want to call it, or matrix, so that we actually appreciate that our needs are being met and we negotiate our wants. Okay? But ladies, if your husband's not getting the respect that he needs, that's a need, by the way, for the man. You have to believe in him. That's a need. You got to respect him. That's a need. Oh, but you don't understand. My husband, he's your husband. You better believe in him or he's never going to get any better. You got to respect him or he's never going to get any better. Well, how can I respect him? He sits on the couch playing video games, drinking beer. So go up to him and say, sweetheart, I just want you to know that I know and I believe in you that you can be more than this. Don't pick it up and say, what's wrong with you? You loser. Well, you say that in different words. But you say it, you may use the exact words, okay? And she said she used those exact words. There you go. Okay? All right? Anyway, I think that'll cover it. I can go on for another hour or two easily. And the only reason I keep going on and on is because this is what I deal with the most. And it's not because I'm frustrated about it. It's because I wish there was a way for me to fix it more. Because almost everybody I know is married, is living, as the quote is, living the life of quiet desperation. They're basically on pain medication tolerance level. They're at some sort of threshold. They're just hanging around pain threshold. Very few are pain-free and happy. Okay? Yeah, I could be pain-free and happy if he would just, or she would just. No, listen, we're just not walking in agreement. Okay? Amen? All right, so let's go ahead and close it up with, we get the